Hello and welcome to episode number 9 of Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast. And I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled that you're here because you value establishing and fostering a joyous Jewish legacy. That's what it's all about. So whether you're the grandparent or the in-betweener, you're here about the Jewish future. Welcome. Now I'm going to ask you a question that you probably ask yourself with some frequency, which is, as a grandparent, how much influence do you really have over your grandchildren's lives? How much impact, how much influence? Now, that question, I think, is exciting and intimidating in equal measure. It's exciting because, well, there is so much potential and possibility and things you could do. That's also intimidating. Like, wait, I have this one shot, this one responsibility, because you know how you were as a parent. And hopefully you can celebrate your successes by looking at your children. But you also, if you reflect on it, know where you fell a little bit short. And maybe you still carry guilt over that. And maybe that makes you feel like you can't be impactful. Or maybe the whole grandparenting thing feels intimidating. And you think, well, I couldn't anyway because they live all the way over there, or because I didn't do well enough as a parent. And so I can't step in as the grandparent. And that bridge is already is even there at all. So I think that it is a hard question and an exciting question because do we have that influence? All right, so that's what I want to unpack in today's episode is the circles of influence and joy. I talk about that joy a lot, and I talk about and share my 20 plus years as a joyous, maybe, but definitely Jewish educator. But my background is also in social work. I have a master's degree in social work. And that social work background really helps frame my work in education and in community. My focus was in community development. And my favorite piece of social work is systems theory. So I want to unpack that with you first. And it does all come back to the question of how much influence we have. Okay? So sometimes we want to think, or don't want to think, but still feel like we're all alone. I'm in this alone. I've got nothing. It's just me. And that is a lie, completely a lie. No person is alone. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Everything you do has an impact. You know, like the butterfly effect, right? Because every person is part of a much larger system. No matter how alone you feel in this moment, you are wildly connected. And that's where we have to work to make sure those connections are as strong as possible because they are so important. All right. So systems theory is that every person is part of an overlapping system. All right. So there's the interconnection. There is you yourself, but you yourself as being part of a family, the intergenerational family, where you come from before, what you're a part of now, that future legacy. And that family unit does not operate alone. It is part of the community that surrounds it. And that community is both your physical neighbors and your chosen community. And I think that as Jews, we have a special community connection. It's an unbelievable thing, the connection of Jews wherever we go in the world to know that we are a community and a family. And then beyond that community piece, we have culture. And I did just mention the Jewish piece, which obviously stacks into it. But there's a culture all around you, whatever country you're in, whatever sort of people are around you. Because I live in Israel, I try to adjust to the Israeli culture, but I also carry with me the American culture. But the American culture, when I lived on the West Coast, was very different than when I lived on the East Coast. And when I lived in Florida, it was very different than when I lived in Baltimore or New York. There's culture, and you get to like, you're very specific, and it comes out and out and out. There's the society as a whole. So there are all of these levels. That's part of the systems theory. But I want to talk about one person in particular who really, I guess, was the master of the systems theory. Um, the the spheres of influence is articulated best by Bronfenbrenner. So Uri Bronfenbrenner was a mega psychologist. He really revolutionized. And obviously, maybe obviously, because you're here on the Connecting Jewish Grandparents podcast, he was a Jewish man. He was born in the former Soviet Union in 1917, and when he was only 6 years old, he emigrated to the United States. I do wonder, and I don't know for sure, if his grandparents came with him and what sort of impact they have. Though he himself was a grandfather, like in his lifetime, he passed away like 20 years ago. But he leaves an incredible legacy both as a grandfather and as a thinker. So here, we're going to unpack Uri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems model. And anybody who's spent any time in social work, you come across his model all the time. It's foundational. But like, look it up yourself now, Bronfenbrenner. It's interesting, and what I'm going to say about it probably will not do it justice because a 3-minute summary is not the decades and decades that he did. He was crucial in Head Start. Like I could spend an hour talking about his biography and his theories, but I'm going to break it down in his spheres of influence. So it's drawn out in circles, not exactly concentric circles and not exactly a Venn diagram because it's both. It's circles upon circles, but they overlap and they intersect. So the most interior circle he calls the microsystem. So the microsystem is the immediate family, the closest relationship around any individual. So I guess the question here is, are you part of your grandchildren's microsystem? That's like a huge question. And maybe that is another way of question the initial question that I asked of how influential are grandparents? Are you part of that microsystem? Are you part of the intricate circle? And if not, don't panic. That's why we're here. We're here to work on it. Then we have the mesosystem, and the mesosystem is where we stretch out and we look at the connections between the microsystems. And this is like where it gets Venn diagrammy. This is the connection that you, the grandparent, have with your children, not the grandchildren, right? So it's the interconnectivity between your grandchildren and your in-laws, and then how that affects the grandchildren in the center. This is really important to contemplate. Like there's many different pieces of the mesosystem. It's not just the grandparent to the parents, the child, like the parents' relationship to each other is part of the mesosystem. It's that the child itself, or your grandchildren themselves, and the family around them, the relationship between every member of the family affects the grandchild. Does that make sense? Did I articulate that well? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying. But if it's not resonating with you, one, I'd be happy to talk about this more in a coaching call because I love this and I want to help you come through the spheres of influence. Um, I want to make that happen. But if that's not in your agenda right now, Google it. It's amazing to contemplate these systems. All right, so again, we have the microsystem. That is the individual themselves and the immediately people around them. Then the mesosystem is the interconnection between the people in the microsystem. Then we have the exosystem, and that's the structures that affect the child and the mesosystem, but it's surrounded and it's also interwoven. So that's like the school and the organizations that one is a part of, and the jobs that the parents have, like their places of work, and the synagogue and youth groups. So all of the things that the grandchild child is a part of. Right? The microsystem. Then there's the mesosystem, and then there's the exosystem. And the exosystem is somewhat optional because you can choose to leave part of that, which can affect people's well-being, but it's the outer play of community. That makes sense, but it's more system, buildings, groups. Then you get past the exosystem and into the macro system. And the macro system, now it's not people and buildings and memberships. Now it's more philosophical, I guess. These are more ideological. That would be a better way of saying it. These are the cultural values, the religion, the traditions. The macro system holds us together in a bigger way, but it's more about thought and behavior than people. Obviously, thought and behavior affect the people. It'll affect the exosystem, which affects the mesosystem, which affects the microsystem. Have we made it all the way out yet? No, there's one more framing element, and that's the chronosystem, and that's the impact of time and transitions and historical context, right? No moment is a moment in and of itself. It is affected by everything around it in the instance of time in this moment, but also within the year, Jewish holidays, but the history of Jewish peoplehood, all of that is carried by your grandchild in any moment. Does that blow your mind? Again, this is why systems theory is just phenomenal. And I really want to again thank Bronfenbrenner for articulating it in this powerful way. He often looked at, as I said, he was part of like Head Start program, where individual was struggling and where the system could be influenced for better. Now, hopefully your grandchildren aren't struggling, but there is always room for improvement. Your influence might not always be direct, but it ripples through every layer of your grandchild's life for bad, but definitely for good. And that is about the intentionality, the plan, the grand plan. So now that we've gone into all the circles, into the microsystem and way back out to the chronosystem, I want to bring it to the other circles. What other circles? Well, you might have heard that I released the Joy Kit about circles. And I did this for many, many reasons. And again, the Joy Kit, spoken about this in other episodes. But the Joy Kits are the plan of Grand Plan. It's the glue. It's the thing you would do at regular intervals with your grandchildren, an intentional way to connect so that it's not just, yeah, I'm fine. Oh, school is good. Okay, okay. It's something you're actively doing together, whether you're remote or you're disconnected. The first theme is about circles. Now, it goes to the time of Elul leading up to Rosh Hashanah, though it is equally relevant anytime. In the Joy Kit, which there's going to be a link in the show notes, and I really recommend that you unpack it. But the idea is that when you do it for Rosh Hashanah, Rosh, head, round, you're going to see these circles everywhere, the interconnection of everything, and it's going to be in a fun and joyful way. Why? Why go into this Joy Kit? It's another set of systems, okay? But this time, if you yourself are in the center, you, that grandparent, You're going to fill your circle yourself with joy, your own. You're at the micro center and you're going to be filled with joy. You're going to try. Then you're going to push out and be intentional with the activities that connect generations. And then you get into the mesosystem of passing on traditions and community. You're passing on that circle out of Jewish practice. And then the wider circle where you're sharing these attributes of Jewish philosophy, of chesed, of interpersonal relationship, of ben adam lechavero, of all of the positivity of Jewish life, of living a life with rules and boundaries and ideals and spirituality. Spreading that with these concentric circles going out, you are going to be, flipping a pebble into the water and watching the concentric ripples going out of spreading joyous Judaism. So you're going to get into that circle, hopefully with the Circles Joy Kit, if not in other ways as we approach Rosh Hashanah. So whether it's with the Joy Kit or on your own, it's all about the intentionality, right? So you're going to focus on the microsystem, where we can get in really deep and intimate and being part of that close circle, that you are an active part of their family. And then the mesosystem, the interconnection between you and the other members of the family. And here is where, which I spoke about in other episodes, it's about collaborating with your children, with the parents, with the intergeneration between grandparent and grandchild. And if you're the in-betweener, so you already know it's about collaborating with a grandparent, with your parents and your children. But it's making those bonds as strong as possible in the mesosystem to impact the microsystem. And you are shaping that macrosystem of embodying Jewish values and celebrating Jewish holidays in joyous ways and modeling the joy of Jewish life in the ways that are joyous for you. If you're not sure how they're joyous for you can take the what type of Jewish grandparent am I quiz. But you probably already know what it is, how it is that you feel joy within expression of your life, your spirituality, your Jewish lenses. I can share my own stories and stories of grandparents that I'm working with, but it's important to reflect on where those ripples hit you from the generations before you. At some point, you were the grandchild. And thinking about where those ripples around you affected you. Because that's what this is about. Where is that influence coming from? As we approach Rosh Hashanah and we're working through the month of Elul, of working on the self-improvement and self-reflection, I want you to ask yourself, where is your circle most active? Where do you want to be most impactful? Is it working in the mesosystem, in that interconnection? Is it the microsystem of showing up and being active for your grandchild? And how are you showing up? Well, that might be time to try out this Joy Kit. Find those circles, see those circles of influence everywhere. Very simply, grandparents don't just live in one circle of influence. You're rippling out. You're shaping identities. You're leaving a legacy. And you get to craft that in a way that is intentional. So slow it down, think about it, and put it into action. As we go into the new year, now is really the time. So if you're still wondering and still having questions, book a 30-minute interview, a meeting with me. There's the Calendly links. I want to get started. I would be very happy to do guiding work with you. Or just get a joy kit and jump into making this relationship active. It's my bracha for you this year that you are able to be influential in your circles of influence and really be able to ripple out and impact your legacy, spreading Jewish joy. Shana Tova. Oh, and I should say just before I go, I really hope you enjoy it. The Connecting Jewish Grandparent podcast. Share it, write a review, spread the word on this. This is only episode 9. At some point, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, look back at episode 9. Now I'm at episode 100. These are the early days. And I need you, my first listeners, to be spreading the word about Grand Plan. So thank you for being here and invite a friend or two to join us for the next episode. Shana Tova.